Welcome to the American Valor podcast. Today we are speaking with Lisa Terrano. Lisa is the collections manager at the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Hall and Museum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She has been serving in that capacity since 2015. Lisa, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about you and your role at the museum.
Thank you very much for having me. This is a pleasure and an honor. I am, like you said, I'm the collections manager here at Soldiers and Sailors, and what that means is I have the honor and privilege to take care of over the 11,000 artifacts that are located in this beautiful building. You mentioned that, Soldiers and Sailors is located in Pittsburgh. It's actually Oakland, PA, probably about 5-10 minutes, depending on traffic of right outside the city. It's a building that's been here since 1910. We were founded as a memorial for Civil War soldiers in Allegheny County in 1910. And as the years evolved, the 114 years evolved, 15 since then, we've not only honored, we went from the Civil War, honoring them, to honoring all U.S. service members through all U.S. conflicts.
No, I thank you for the work that you do in your capacity and amazing history for the museum. I was mentioning earlier in our conversation that growing up in New York, you hardly ever go too far from the city, but being so close, having such a great facility and the things that they do there, it's amazing. So we thank you all for what you do on a daily basis. Now, folks, at the Bob Feller Active Valor Foundation, we strive to educate, support, and recognize by instilling the timeless values of service, sacrifice, legacy, and citizenship. And today we will be speaking about a Medal of Honor recipient, an amazing minor league baseball player called John Joseph, better known as Joe Pinder Jr. And Joe played baseball at an early age in the late 1920s and went on to play in the minor leagues from the 30s to the 40s to about 41. He entered the service in the U.S. Army as a radio operator and was killed in action in June of 1944. Now, Lisa, Joe's story is both amazing and heart wrenching to me at the same time. I wanted to focus our discussion today around the four pillars of the Bob Feller Active Valor Foundation and how Joe exemplified these. So let's start off with service.
Mhm.
How did Joe's decision to serve in the military reflect his sense of duty and citizenship?
Right. So Joe, we call him Joe. Joe's family, the Pinder family, donated over 60 items, everything from his birth certificate to telegrams stating to his family that he was killed in action. So I have, the honor and the privilege to go ahead and read through these. So through my research and talking to the family, I got to know what kind of person Joe was on that aspect. And, he comes from a blue collar family. He was born and raised in McKees Rocks. He was there till he was about 17 years old. McKees Rocks is about 5 minutes outside the city, and it was a mill town. It was a blue collar, hardworking. His father worked in the mill, so it was that kind of upbringing that he had. We have letters that Joe wrote to his mother, his father, his younger brother. He was the oldest of the family. He was a junior, so he was his father's namesake. So, reading these items, you got a sense of Joe's strong attitude, his commitment to family. And then when you go ahead and start looking into his baseball career and how dedicated he was to that league, that grounding of his upbringing and how close he was with his mother. He wrote, in elementary school, two beautiful poems to his mother on Mother's Day and one on Valentine's Day. So I think, and this is just, my historical background, just reading into this, is that he had that foundation that gave him the courage, the strength, and he had those pillars that he could stand on, a good family, a sense of hard work. That's what, McKees Rocks growing up would have been like back then. So when it comes to, his baseball career, he was a right-handed pitcher. He was the pitcher on, or in the different leagues that he played in. And he started very, very young. We have a trophy of his, when he was probably, 12 years old, that he received, that he was one of the champions of this particular team at that time. So I think that all of these combined things, the upbringing, the attitude, the will, the desire, have brought him into his military career, which we'll get into. So I hope I answered your question, but I just talking to the family and knowing them and how close knit that they are now too. It goes from that generation, and it shows in this generation too.
Well, that upbringing, and yeah, I saw the information of him being young, 10 to 12 years old, playing baseball. Baseball, it's a disciplined sport. So is most of all sports. It takes a lot of discipline, dedication, commitment. And he showed that at such a young age, and undoubtedly had an impact on his decision to serve and protect the nation, and definitely represented that strong foundation, as you mentioned, that created that sense of duty and real citizenship. He joined the military, leaving, and we'll talk about this here in a little while, leaving such a promising career to go ahead and be that servant leader that he was, even as a young man. Now,
Right.
let's move on to sacrifice, the second pillar.
Mhm.
And I know that as I introduced him early on, I mentioned he was killed in action. So,
Mhm.
the ultimate sacrifice, right, is what we refer that to.
Mhm.
But how did Joe's action in war exemplify the concept of sacrifice?
Well, I think with just looking at Joe received the Medal of Honor for his actions. And, one of the descriptions that states, in order for you to receive the Medal of Honor, or even to be, considered for the Medal of Honor, you have to do something that's beyond, the call of duty. I mean, it's above and beyond the call of duty. So Joe's actions that day, and we can get into that. I mean, he knew what he had to do. Now, Joe was a radio man, and to establish the communications on that beach that day, his first wave in, he had to. He knew that the mission that he was told to do had to be achieved in order for it to be a victory. And you see this in his sacrifice, his dedication. We'll get into that in a second, but you see him doing everything possible in order to go ahead and achieve his mission, and he did. So nothing was going to stop him from doing that, whether it was his wounds, the hell that was going on around him at that time. Nothing was going to stop him from what his duty was that day, and that was to establish the communications on that beach.
Yeah, now talking about that mission and that job that he had, take us through those moments. I know you mentioned this before, but I would like the audience to
Sure.
be able to visualize what this may have looked like for him once he was coming in that landing craft and
Sure.
coming onto that beach.
So we have the eyewitness reports in order for you to go ahead and receive the Medal of Honor. And, and let me just make this powerful statement. I mean, only 3,517 service members have received the Medal of Honor out of, thousands, 41 million, I was told, that served from beginning of time to now, 41 million, only a little over 3,000 have received the Medal of Honor. So Joe that day, he joined the military with his brother Hal. His brother also joined. He was 10 years younger than him. Hal joined the U.S. Army Air Corps. Joe joined the military, or the Army. So Joe was in the 16th Infantry 1st Division. So the 1st Division, their nickname is the Big Red One. So he was a radio guy. He was the one that establishes the communications wherever they go. So he joined in January 1942, right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And by the time D-Day came around, he was already a seasoned man. He, in the military, he's already been through Africa. He's been through Sicily. And so by the time the storming of the beaches of Normandy, he is a seasoned guy. He knows what he's doing. So on that particular day, Joe is first wave in. He's in the landing craft. The landing craft, a flat bottom boat that has a ramp that goes down in the front. And he is on his way across the English Channel, and all hell breaks loose. The Germans see them. Mortars are going off. Machine gun fire is going off. He's first wave in. The front of the landing craft goes down. And anybody that was standing in the front of that landing craft was shot by machine gun fire and fallen. So Joe sees this. He takes his radio. So now let me picture this. Picture this radio. It's about 40 pounds, the size of a window air conditioning unit, if you want that way. So he takes his radio, his huge 40-pound radio, and he jumps over the side of the landing craft. At this time, he is in the English Channel in water up to his chin. And we have the eyewitness reports that I stated that shown that Joe at this point is shot in the face, basically as soon as he hits the water. So these witness reports state that they see Joe holding onto his face with one hand and holding onto his radio with the other. And he's trying to get to shore as all this commotion is going around with the mortars and the machine gun fire. He makes it to shore. He refuses medical treatment. He realizes his radio is not working. So again, like we said earlier, he had one mission, and that mission is to establish communication. Without that communication, nobody back in England, nobody back in Washington, D.C., nobody back on those boats that are in the English Channel will know what's going on until Joe tells them what's going on. So he decides that he's going to go back into the water, into the ocean, as all this commotion's going on 3 times. So he's going into the water, he's picking up radios, he's picking up radio parts, anything that he could think of and that he could use in order to establish radio communications on that beach. The 3rd time coming out of the beach, he is shot across the legs by machine gun fire. At this point, he's extremely weak of the loss of blood. He's shot in the face, he's shot in the legs. He ends up establishing communication on that beach, calling in what he needed to do. And at that point in time, he shot the 3rd time and he was killed. His actions, I could say, were above and beyond the call of duty when you put it. Joe's family, had his father, his mother was already deceased at this time. She passed away the year before, received the Medal of Honor the next year, the following year. I did mention Hal. I did mention his brother. I just need to go ahead and state this part. Hal, his brother, was in the U.S. Army Air Corps, was shot down. So as Joe was storming the beaches of Normandy, all he knew is his brother was missing in action at this point in time. But Joe's brother Hal did survive in a German POW camp and survived the war and just passed away, I think, in 2014. So there you go. I mean, I mean, every time I tell that story, I think I get goosebumps. I get a little bit of emotional stating it because I can't even fathom what that would have been like to be on that beaches. I mean, we all seen Save It Private Ryan. We all know. I mean, and but to be able to go ahead and do what he did with a clear head, devotion, to go ahead and say, this was my mission and I need to achieve it. He did not say, well, I'm going to just lay here and I'm going to wait for medical treatment. He did not state that, well, hell with it. I'm all ready to put me back in the boat. I'm going back to the land, to the ship. He didn't say any of that. There was no, per these eyewitness reports, and we have about 5 or 6 of them, and they all state the same thing. It's just his drive that day to achieve his mission was all that he was thinking of. And he did it. He did it.
And I tell you that as I was listening to you and thinking about the pillars, see, he sacrificed a promising career as a baseball player, to the accounts of those that were watching him play. They clearly stated this guy is a shoo-in. He's a no-brainer to the major leagues. He puts that on hold to serve his country, which definitely speaks to the pillar of sacrifice. But then you have these actions. And then, look, I served 26 years in the Navy, and I'm listening to it. My heart is beating fast. My mind is going to the beach, and I was on the USS Iwo Jima, so we land the
Oh, wow.
Marines on the shore. So I could see that scenario. But
Mhm.
what a legacy, right? The pillar of legacy. What a legacy. And
Yes,
not only Joe's legacy, his brother.
his brother.
This is a family
Mhm.
where sacrifice was top of their list.
That's it.
And
Yep.
and to think about, I had my mom pass away, and
Mhm.
I had to quit my job
Mm,
because I could not think straight.
right.
Here, his mom passes away that year prior, and
Mhm.
he's completing the mission.
Yep.
So, what a legacy
Yes.
to leave to his family,
Mhm.
to fellow Army and sailors, right? Because there was a combined force at times, and just general service members around our nation,
Right.
that to do the mission sometimes legacy will call on you,
Mhm.
but sometimes that call is high.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the amount of people that have gotten the Medal of Honor, not that many
Mhm.
compared to the amount they have served. It was fully rightly his.
Mhm.
What he did that day
Mhm.
could have made or broke that
Mhm.
whole entire evolution and tactic had he not established communications that day.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, you know more than me when it comes to that. You were in the military. You know what it's like when you're told to do something. You're a part of a bigger goal. You're a part of a bigger plan. You're a part of something bigger. And you are that small wheel, but without that wheel turning, it breaks down. So he knew that. And to go ahead and, I mean, let's just face it, he could have, like you said, he could have had a really good, cushy life in the major leagues. And we have articles that I'll show you when you come to visit that from that particular time in the early 20s, watching him as a 16-year-old, as an 18-year-old, as a 20-year-old, stating this guy's going someplace, and that he gave that up. And and a lot of Americans did at that time. It's like I read someplace after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, that next day, 130,000 Americans signed up for the military that next day, so within 24 hours, it was a sign of the times too, so I want to give that little bit out there, but for Joe to do what he did, and we're talking about it today, is and we're passing that courage on, and we're passing that dedication on to that next generation, and I don't think anybody in the military, not the ones I've spoken with anyways, want to be this extreme, if you want to use the word hero, they just want to do their part. And I think that day Joe knew what his part was, and he accomplished it.
He certainly did. Now, moving on to the fourth pillar of citizenship,
Mhm.
what lessons can we learn from his life about the importance of service and sacrifice for your country?
Sure. And I think just reading everything about Joe, and dipping headfirst into his life, before, after, and let's just say, before, during, and after. Um, I think it's about the whole. It's not about you, um, of doing something for the greater whole. And I think that we can all take that lesson, and use it today. Is that um, it's just about the individual. If I can go ahead and do something good, to make it better for the whole, and I think that's a lesson we can take from Joe, is that his little part, if you want to call it little, that he had to play was communications. There was thousands of people on that beach that day. 150,000 stormed the beaches of Normandy that day. So it's like he knew his part. He was one out of thousands that stormed that beaches that day, and to take his, it was the greater of the whole that mattered to him. And I think we can take that lesson and use it in, no matter what. You don't have to serve in the military. Like I said, I've never served in the military, but I can go ahead and do my part, my small part, to get Joe's story out. We have 7 Medal of Honors here. They all are incredible. We have many stories here that go under the radar. That is just incredible, that I love to share to people when they come to visit. So I can do my small part, because it's going to be something that somebody could take on and take those lessons and move forward in their life. And I think that we can learn that lesson from Joe's life. And if we can take that lesson from Joe's life, um, I think the sacrifice that he made for us in the country won't go in vain. I think that we can cherish his life that way and honor his life that way by taking that lesson forward.
Absolutely. And he definitely exemplified what being a citizen looked like. The important piece of all that is that he was a citizen on
Hmm.
foreign soil.
Yeah. Oh,
You
right.
know, he took
Right.
it, he took it with him. It did
Yeah.
not stop when he left the States. He took it with him. He
Yep.
carried it out through his mission and actions. And that is something that we can applaud every day. And so, yes, we have a lot to learn from that, especially in the condition that we may find ourselves as a nation today.
Right.
Citizenship may be one of
Right.
those forethoughts that we have to grab onto. We have to grab onto that and
Right.
really take it in for ourselves, as you mentioned. Now,
Right.
Yeah, this is one of the stories of many, as you mentioned, that the museum houses and shares, and I think a very important story as it branches into a baseball, right? But if someone wanted to find out more about the museum, find out more about your duties there as the person that brings everything together, how can they do that? Where would they want to go to find out more?
Right. Well, you can go on our website, soldiersandsailorshall.org. You can go onto our website. We also have our social media sites. You can like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram. The second Thursday of the month, we always do what we call our Spotlight On series. So you'll get to go ahead and know our collection that we go online. It's on YouTube and Facebook, and it's a live showing that we do about a piece of our collection. And we have events, a calendar on our website that you can go ahead on and look at the different events. Next, or the 27th, July 27th, we're having Korean War Appreciation Day. We do events all year long that honor, that pushes our mission out there about honoring our veterans. And or call me. So I'm the only Lisa that works here. I give tours, free tours to veterans. We do have tour programs here. One's called our VIP tour that we go into our vault. It's a 3-hour tour. You could have lunch, or we could do a happy hour, and we go into our vaults. We go into our attics where we store most of our artifacts, and the curator and I will take you on a tour here too. So when you're in Pittsburgh, stop by. Admission is free for veterans, and and you'll see artifacts all the way from the Civil War all the way to our current, plus our 7 Medal of Honors that we have.
Outstanding. Now, folks, we'll have all those links for you to be able to visit Lisa and this wonderful museum, highlighting a lot of our nation's heroes. And it's been a great time sharing this platform with you, Lisa. Thank you for sharing Joe's story and allowing us to highlight that. And on behalf of the Bob Feller Act of Valor Foundation, thank you all for joining us on this episode.
Thank you.